Alrighty. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are so excited to have you here. We're going to give it a minute or two as people join, but definitely feel free to chat in where you're from. We're so excited to hear from you. Happy Wednesday. Hi, everyone who is joining. We're just going to give it another a minute or so. Feel free to chat in where you're from. We want to hear from you. We are definitely going to have this as interactive and conversational as possible. Looks like we've got Spokane here. That's exciting. Ooh, Canada. We got Columbus, Ohio. This is great. So we are going to kick it off. We'll let everybody else kind of flow in, but I do want to give enough time for our lovely panelists today. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey DuPont. I am on the marketing team at Daxco. I am so excited that you're joining us for our Accelerate Roundtable today. We have an awesome crew of panelists, and we're also partnered with Community Rec Magazine. And we have Brittany here from Community Rec. She's going to do a quick intro of herself and lay some foundations of this webinar, and we'll get going. So feel free to chat in where you're from. We're so excited to have you here, and thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Brittany. I'm the editor of Community Rec Magazine. If you don't know about us yet, we are a free business resource for online and in print for YMCA, JCC, and community rec professionals. You can find us on the web at communityrecmag.com or on all the social media channels. We're there as well. But today we're honored to be teaming up with Daxco for this month's Accelerate Leadership Roundtable, and in hopes of helping professionals like yourself further grow your mission and impact your communities. So we're really excited to be here today. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce some of the leaders that we have today. Parrish Underwood, the Chief Advancement Officer at the YMCA of Metro Atlanta. We also have Christina Bosher-Nitzen, the Member Experience Director at JCC Austin. And we also have Lolita Haverlock, the Senior Vice President of Operations at the YMCA of Central Ohio. Also moderating today's roundtable is Daxco CEO Ron Lamb. Thanks, Ron. I'll go ahead and go over a couple of those notes that we talked about before we get started. So all participants have been muted to cut down on background noise during the discussion, but we do want it to be interactive, like Kelsey said. So please be sure to chat in any questions that you have during the discussion. At the end, our panelists will answer them. We'll make sure we get to everybody and have all those questions answered for you. Additionally, the session will be recorded, and so an on-demand version as well as a blog recap will be available to registrants after the roundtable. Again, thank you all. We're so excited to be here. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ron.
Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate it. And thank you, panelists. Thank you so much for donating some of your time, some of your precious time to give back to the various movements and help our nonprofit community. Really, really appreciate you doing that. I'm going to dive right in with question number one. And my question is around how we're returning back to normal. And what we're seeing is some mega trends across all of nonprofits. Is about 35% of members who previously canceled have rejoined in 2021. So that's just awesome. Love it, love it, love it. But we're also seeing somewhere around 16 to 20% of new joins are new to the facility. So there is a material significant, in fact, and there's a very wide bell curve. We've seen some organizations in the 50% range where they're brand new people coming and joining, which is really fantastic. I think that says a lot about the growth of health and wellness. And I wanted to just kind of go around the horn and ask you guys, what are you seeing as far as people coming back first half of the year? How do you extrapolate that out to the second half? And then what are you seeing as far as new joins, like people who new to your facility? Where are you in that range? So why don't we start? Christina, you want to lead us off?
Sure, thanks so much for having me. So our trends sound pretty on par with what you said. We've definitely experienced a lot of members rejoining that we kind of, I think in a way, everybody had given up faith in all the members who canceled and we're like, oh, I guess they're lost. And what's so interesting is that we've had more of our canceled members rejoin than we've had necessarily people who are on a freeze come back to an active membership. So that's been a really interesting surprise. We've had a lot of both. We've also kind of, like you mentioned, had a lot of new memberships of people we just had never heard of. But, you know, one thing we really branded well was the fact that we put safety and health first during this whole thing. And so people think, oh, I want to get back into fitness. I don't really know if I feel safe doing that yet. And because that was such a prominent part of our branding, that it's helped us get new members as well.
Great, thank you. Lolita?
Yeah, thanks, Ron. I think pretty, similar to Christina. Ours is we're seeing kind of the same trends that you have just laid out. I think one thing for us when we were opening from the new member perspective is, our categories are slightly different. So off ratio of what we typically are, right? We usually have, a much higher percentage of family memberships and those categories, whereas we saw an influx of like single adult and young adult. So we connected that to, we didn't offer everything at first, right? We had to phase opening. We only had adults in our building for a long time. We didn't have a lot of family opportunities. So that was a little bit of a difference for us as well that we had to shift. But similar to Christina, we felt that, getting those that did come back, returning, communication was definitely the key. Our communication had to be clear. It was centered around safety. We really thought that was crucial to gaining our members back. It's also been a priority to communicate what offerings are available to members as we evolve in this whole reopening process. So I think the consistent delivery of key messages around that cleanliness, the member benefits, how the support the Y is offering and improving their wellness, I think has brought some people back as well as some new individuals as well.
Great, thank you. And Parrish, I noticed we'd lost you for a second, so I'm not sure if you're available to, what have you seen in Atlanta as far as people coming back, whether they were canceled or on hold, and then new people to the organization?
Sure, sorry about that. Unfortunately, it appears that I'm experiencing a few technical difficulties, and so I'll try to be brief and succinct. I think from what Lolita shared, as well as Christina, people after the last 12 to 15 months of sheltering in place have been eager to get back out and about, and so we have seen a great deal of our members come back, but we also know that we still have quite a few people that are still holding. The pandemic allowed us to showcase who we are and the purity of our mission and attract people who are not already engaged in the YMCA. And I think that's part of the new crowd of what we're seeing. And I think that's one of the many silver linings, one of the silver linings that has come out of that, because we were able to demonstrate that we're so much more than a gym, and we answer the call when the community needs us. And we did just that. And I think we've bought or encouraged some new YMCA advocates as well.
Excellent, good. Yeah, it is interesting because there's a lot of orphans out there, right? I mean, we calculate, there are millions, as many as 10 or 15 million people who canceled whatever their health and wellness relationship was. I also think we're going to see a lot of couch to health people. I think the COVID and what happened was a bit of a wake-up call. So Mike, I'm going to go back to Christina and kind of put the three of you on the spot with this one. What's your strategy? How has your strategy had to change and adapt given what happened and how we were impacted by COVID? But what is your strategy to communicate and to market and to share those benefits so we can pull people into our various businesses. And are you doing anything that would be unique or an aha for our audience to learn?
I don't know if it's unique after hearing Parrish talk, and I was like, oh, he stole my talking points. But we also really kind of, when everything happened and everybody was running on adrenaline and saying, what can I do new? What can I do different? What do I add into this to give value to my whatever it is? Our leadership fortunately had the foresight to kind of draw back and say, what do we already do? Like, what is our mission? What do we already do well? What does our community need? And where's that confluence? So it's not like we did more or really totally changed what we were doing, but instead we really focused on that mission. And we really focused on, I don't know if you guys saw in the news reports, but Austin lost power for a week because Texas. That was fun. But when that happened, we went into action and we said, how can we help our community? What can we do? Like, what can we do to really get out there and help people? And I think just the fact that we really refocused on that mission, it drew people to us. And even with all these new members coming in, I'm not finding that I need to go out there and plead with people, or I need to say, look at what we're doing. Like, it's just kind of, we're owning who we are. We know who we are and what we do well. And we're just very intentionally programming around that and providing those services.
Excellent. Yeah, we were with you that week when you lost power. Lolita, what about in Ohio? Any specific strategies to reach out, communicate with these people, to share and pull them in?
Again, similar, really. Our Y's really, we have shifted some priorities with communication internally and externally. Our Y really concentrated or is concentrated now, I guess, more than ever before, on ensuring that our leaders have a very shared vision. We're naming it our North Star. The time has really caused a significant shift in our operations. So it has really provided us a space to become really laser focused, though, on what we want to look like in the future. And that definitely has been a shift for us internally. Again, intentional about direct outreach to demographics that we historically haven't served. We've really tried to go into their spaces, whether it's in person, virtually, starting in person, but mostly virtually, communicating and really reiterating what our commitment is to all of our community members, highlighting all the different programs and services that we're doing. We've also found some of our strategies are through collaborations. We're finding collaborations are more important than ever right now in serving our communities. And we're really trying to plant those seeds for those future partnerships. Specifically communications, from a communications perspective, we've been really intentional about storytelling to share why membership means more at the Y. We've also brought forward member testimonials, very strategic about the engagement of our audiences and really trying to target those audiences in our communications that I don't feel we've really done previously in the past with an intentionality, again, like those members on hold, or specifically targeting those canceled members with specific messaging.
Parrish, any strategies you'd want to share with our group?
I like everything I've heard because it's very similar to really the approach that we've taken. I wish I could sit back and say, in reality, we were just responding, who believes in lots of communication. And she really went center stage and served as the face and the voice of our organization. And so we were constantly communicating with all audiences. The beauty of the virtual environment, which we all sort of stumbled upon, is that it allowed us to sort of do video vignettes, if you will, and share them on a very frequent basis to send the message of where we are, also to show that we're still here to support you and the community and to provide updates. And so we had a very focused, and once again, we sort of stumbled upon this response. an internal as well as an external messaging plan or program where we were constantly communicating. And because of how we were able to sort of pivot and respond to the community needs around and emergency workers, as well as food distribution, which many YMCA sort of went into that space, we were able to realize that what we're really, what makes us really special, we don't talk about a market enough, if you will. And so we are in the middle of a marketing campaign, which is really focused on messaging and letting the community know that you belong here, you belong with the YMCA. And that gives us an opportunity to send the message that the YMCA is here for you, is here for the community. We want you here, and all you have to do is raise your hand and say that you want to participate. And we find that that's doing us a great service in terms of awareness across a multitude of levels, whether that's through membership, through volunteer service, and even philanthropically as well.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. You know, we've seen a shift, you know, new question. We've seen a shift in what the CDC and OSHA is talking about relative to masks. And it's interesting because I think as a society, it feels, maybe it's not true, but it feels like we've gone from 0 to 60 like that without not a huge amount of warning. However, as I talk to different CEOs and officers around the country, they feel like, hey, this is going to be great, because one of the major obstacles to people coming back and using our facilities and feeling comfortable was safety, or, hey, I don't want to wear a mask when I work out. Kind of curious. I know this is hot off the presses. We're only about a week into this, but how is that changes in federal policy impacting you and where you think you're headed as far as your organization? Christina, why don't we start with you?
So we actually really hit the ground running on this one. And I'm so proud of where we've come, because kind of like Lolita said earlier, prior to the pandemic, we weren't all over the place. We had a focused message. We knew who we were, but we didn't necessarily collaborate as well as we could have. And if anybody on this call knew that the mask mandate would be lifted the afternoon that I had said in the morning, I mean, it's going to be lifted before I'm ready. I'm wearing a mask for the next year for sure. You know, that this is the conversation I had that morning, and then suddenly it gets lifted and no warning. And it was shocking. So we had so many procedures already in place. I knew exactly who I needed to message. I know who needed to draft it. I know how we were going to send it out, who it was going to be sent out to. We'd already so firmly established communicating to our members about, we know this change has come. We don't know exactly what it means for next week, but for right now, we're still requiring masks in the facilities. And we had this very clear, consistent message that was so simple. And while I'm still terrified of what comes next week when we, you know, get with our infectious disease specialist and we get with the city of Austin and we figure it out, I think that that clear, consistent messaging externally and internally has just helped keep our community on our side, and that we're really all in this together.
Good. Lolita, how about in Ohio?
Yes, this is definitely hot off the presses. And obviously all of us are in the midst of figuring it all out. And same thing like Christine said, from the collaboration standpoint, I mean, we have been preparing for this day, but like you said, it still feels like when the announcement really comes out that it just happened. So we have, I mean, internally, very similar to Christina, you know, we have our team, like our action team that, you know, has been the team since the shutdown, and really just pulled together. And, you know, we are everything from our marketing person to our risk management person to our lead operations people, you know, across all of our branches, is we just come together as one and really vet through all the pros and cons, we also do a lot of research. We reach out to everybody else too. I mean, we're in multiple counties here. So we have, they can, the announcement can come out, but the counties can come out with something a little bit different, right? So it is a balance of urgency and getting that communication out there, because everyone wants to know how this affects them from internal to external. But at the same time, we have to balance that with inundating of communication when things change the next day or the day after, because a county has shifted a little bit off of the guideline that was announced. So it's definitely a delicate balance. We're working through that process right now. And, the biggest thing is collaborating and researching across with also too, just other entities, even outside of the Y. One, it's important to know what our Ys across our whole state are doing. So, we can have as much consistency messaging from that perspective, even though it's not going to be the same. But at the same time, even within here where we are in Columbus, for the most part, and our surrounding counties, is what are other places doing that are not the YMCA? We want to make sure that we're serving the community in a safe way, and we all need to pull together again as a collaborative piece to do that and come across as, I would say, like a one unit in a way. So we are kind of working together with a lot of different entities, whether it's public, like our Parks and Rec, or private wellness centers. So I think that whole collaborative piece and that shared serving the community and getting through this space together is super important. But yeah, it is definitely a hot off the presses and working through it all right now. We've all learned, I think, to be flexible and evolve, including our communities and members. So I do feel there's a little extra patience right now across the board with everyone, because we're all kind of going through it together. But I think that vulnerability and transparency also too is what is making a stronger community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, collaborating and coordinating, right? Just sharing best practices and things of that nature. How about in Atlanta, Parrish?
Yeah, I'm smiling because you said we're about a week in, and I was trying to figure out, are we at a week quite, or is tomorrow a week? Maybe the announcement came out last Wednesday. But needless to say, once again, our operations team had to spring into action in a sense. And I think we're getting accustomed to that because, there's just not a playbook for living in a global pandemic. And the reality of it is that we're on the other side of it, which is a good thing. And we have to remind ourselves that we've used the tactic of high communication, our sort of back to normal plan, increasing our capacity levels. June 1 or June 15th, we will be back to, I don't think we were anticipating as human behavior would have it, this was good news because people want to actually exist without walking around with a mask, particularly if you're vaccinated. And then those who aren't vaccinated are also concerned. And so we had to sort of huddle fairly quickly and then come out with a communication to our membership, which was last Friday, and said, listen, we're aware, we ask your patience, we'll be right back to you with what our plan is. And we had to give some consideration to that because, there's some other governing bodies around early learning and childcare and exemptions that you have to balance all of that out in a sense. And so we had to huddle up and circle all of us together to make sure that we were covering all of our bases, crossing our T's and dotting our I's. And we did come back out with and communicate our plan this past Monday, and it seems to be going well. And so I think this still unprecedented times and reflect of where we were 12 months ago, 6 months ago, and even 3 months ago. It gives you a little bit of a sense that, this is all very, very well. We'll continue to ask for grace and patience And I think we're going to be fine. But I think the best thing that's worked for us to this point is a high degree of communication. Even if we're communicating that we don't know or we don't have any answers, but we will be back to you. And so that's exactly what we're doing. And I think we've bought ourselves a more grace with our members because they've realized that we will continue to operate with safety and their well-being in mind.
Yep. Yep. I think it all goes back to communication for sure. You mentioned childcare, and so I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about, have you had any creative strategies around childcare, daycare, summer camps? What are you seeing, and are there any ideas or best practices we could share with our audience? Christina?
So I don't actually work in the childcare area, but I work with them. And I also have a bunch of kids that go to all of the different levels, which is fun. They're mine. And what I'll say is that our childcare team really quickly knew that our community had the need for childcare and that kids had the need for socialization and schools were shut down. And so it was never a conversation of, can we do this? It was, how do we do this? And so kind of going back to that idea of having consistency and policies or procedures in place to kind of know what you're doing next and how you're going to approach it, we were able to set a framework and then each time just build on it a little at a time. So I'm sure that a lot of other Ys and Js did something similar, but we have something called proctored pods, which is for all the virtual learners who don't have a school to go to, they can go to a pod where you're kind of with the same 8 kids all day. There's somebody to help you get online, you get to socialize, have mask breaks. And that was a program that we really created with the idea of it ending, right? Our goal is for this program to go as far away from us and we never have to think about it again as possible, because we want our kids in school where they want to be, but this is a need that the community had, and we were going to figure out how to make it happen. And since we were able to just build every single time, so now our summer camp is in full swing. We are over 100% to our goal for summer camp enrollment. We're already over 100% to our ECP, our preschool enrollment. And it's due in large part to the procedures and the protocols and the fact that we know what we're doing and we're being thoughtful and just having a strong intention. Whatever we choose to do, that is what we meant to do. And there's a reason for it. And we communicate it transparently. And it's been great. They've done an amazing job.
That's terrific. And who would have thought we'd have the term mask break, and everybody on the call was like, oh yeah, mask break, of course. Oh, Lolita, how about in Ohio? Anything you're doing in the childcare camp, summer camp? I mean, great to hear, Christina, you're at 100% for your camp. That's awesome. I know the YMCA, I'm on the board, we're at 75%, but that's because there was a state, that was the max we could do. But we've got a wait list that could fill it up like that. Just, how are you doing with respect to the kids?
Yeah, I mean, initially with our childcare piece, from through the pandemic and until now, yes, it's evolved, it's transition. It's all about flexibility, responsiveness. Through the height of the pandemic with the closure of the schools, we couldn't operate several of our before and after school childcare sites. We worked to meet those needs for childcare, student access, again, through collaborations, partnerships, pivoting our own spaces, like within our branches, and bringing even one of our homeless shelters to support the virtual learning, kind of similar to what Christine was talking about. We have virtual learning centers, they're learning extension centers, and we used our spaces very creatively to be able to expand that and be responsive from that way. We have seen continued involvement in our day and resident camp. We have a resident camp here as well, besides traditional day camp, and same thing. Our resident camp is basically at 100%. I think it's like this morning when we checked the numbers, our executive reported back on the numbers for the resident camp. She was like, it's like 99% full. So we're super excited about that. Like when you think about last year when we thought, are we even going to have a camp? And what would that even look like? So really excited. You're right. People want to come back. They want to, engage and have these experiences. So we've really seen a continued involvement right now in both of our day and resident camps this year, even our learning extension centers. Same as Christina, it's so funny, you open them up for a temporary piece and here we are, extending them out. So we're seeing, again, a high level of involvement in our learning extension centers as well, our before and after school care. Again, when schools open back up in the fall. We were one of the few providers offering pandemic childcare during the early parts of the pandemic. And I think that's where we were really able to establish policies and procedures that really ensured our operations were safe. And I think that helped prepare us for now. So that was definitely a bonus. Again, flexibility wise, the increase in that childcare participant piece, the income, all of that part, I think is due to the flexibility, because when the school districts did change, because again, virtual, hybrids, all different types of schedules, we changed as well, right? We pivoted to meet the needs of all the parents. So we shifted from our traditional all day to having all day, part day, a variety of schedules in part day, really just to meet the needs of the parents as it connected in and with their schedules of their kids' schools, and whether it was in person, online, or what was needed. But that piece where we have built up that confidence, I think, with the parents and our safety protocols, again, from our reopening procedures and being able to offer that early on, I definitely think was a bonus for the participation that we're seeing now.
Yep. Makes perfect sense. How about in Atlanta, Parrish? What are you guys seeing as far as kids and camps and childcare? What are those trends?
Our trends are fairly solid. In many communities, we are now have reached capacity enrollment. Again, we've limited our capacity to maintain a high degree of safety and sort of the COVID protocols, if you will. But in many areas, and like what Lolita shared in Central Ohio, because we continue to provide emergency childcare during the early part of the pandemic, we've been able to really gain a lot of confidence based on the safety protocols and regulations. I think one of the biggest benefits that's come out of it is our deepening relationship of health. And so we have a very, very solid plan around how to keep kids safe while maintaining lots of physical activity. And I think we've also seen an increase in parental confidence to do just that. And so in many cases, many of our branch camp programs are at capacity. And we're seeing that as well in our residential camp programs also. I do want to say I'm experiencing a great deal of technical difficulty, and so I'm going to try to keep my camera off, hoping that my volume and vocal will come through a lot better. And so my apologies as I struggle through this.
Yeah, actually, I think the camera being off has helped a little bit, and you came through loud and clear, so thank you.
Well, sorry for that mug shot that's listed up there.
You know what? If I was that handsome, I think I would have my camera off all the time.
Thanks, Ron.
You're welcome. Thinking about 2021, I'm curious what your different organizations are as far as planning. We all have plans. We're trying to get back to 100% of revenue, whatever that goal might be. I know a lot of people are benchmarking 2019, not 2020. But where are you in that? What's the planning potential? Yeah, just kind of a quick question. We think we'll be 50%, we think we'll be 80%, whatever. And what are the one or two things that the organization is focused on that we see as an opportunity that, hey, this is an area that we're putting some effort in, we're putting some investment, we're kind of thinking about to try to close that revenue gap? Christina?
So we're in a somewhat atypical situation, although I'm finding more and more in this, which is we started a giant expansion construction project in November. So mid-pandemic. So, I get calls all the time about, is your childcare open? Are your locker rooms open? What are you doing? And dodge that bullet, I guess, because it's closed, right? But what that's allowing us to do, once again, is kind of really create intentional programming around what our community needs, and what our community needs is each other. So we originally started our group fitness classes on Facebook. And then a few months in, we used Daxco's nice virtual check-in feature and created a paywall, and it was fabulous. And we transitioned to Zoom. And kind of the benefit of that was that our members suddenly saw each other for the first time in 4 or 5 months, and they were enchanted. They were, we're having all these technical difficulties. Parrish, yours doesn't even come close to the issues we had in the beginning. And they're just sitting there like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. Lolita, that's your name. I never knew your name in class. And so even with kind of having fewer facilities, our fitness centers open, our preschools open, but it's all a little bit in a mix, but it's allowing us to hone the messaging around our mission and around our community. And also say, oh my goodness, we're going to have a brand new tennis center, a brand new pool, and a brand new fitness center, and everything's going to be amazing. Just give us a year. So it's good.
That is good. That is good. Lolita, how about in Ohio? What are you seeing? Where do you think you'll land revenue wise for 2021? And what are the top 1 or 2 things that your organization is focused on to try to close that gap?
Yeah, so, when we sat down at the very beginning of the year and tried to create this budget, our projections and goals, we're hoping to be at the end of the year around that 85%. So that's kind of where we are with our projected goal. So we, yes, we have some big initiatives that we're, again, hoping it serves some needs. Again, like our virtual Y, we're launching virtual Y, just things that are very different that we're hoping bring in different revenue streams. But really, I think from, I don't say an efficiency standpoint, but kind of when it comes to, we're really looking at that revenue, right, is we got to look at streamlining processes and efficiency. And the pandemic forced us to reprioritize, it forced us to restructure our organization. And it gave us an opportunity really to streamline our operations. Our new staffing structure enables us to enhance that whole member experience. It's really connecting the full-time staff more to direct service and members, which I think is a benefit for all of this when we think about trying to doesn't say secure those members, but it's the experience, right? And I think when we can put that frontline staff and our full-time staff and streamline those operations and make those connections, I do think that has a direct benefit from that perspective. We've really also used this time, again, communications. We've really used this time to improve our internal and external communications. Again, more strategic, more efficient, more streamlined. We've been very meticulous in our reopening and bringing programs and services back and how we utilize our dollars and what type of programming we provide. Again, we've really sat back and developed a strong new process and a really strong pro forma process when it comes to our teams. Co-design this process, everyone is on the same page, and it really ensures that our programs are set up to be successful from launch. And, those are we're always reevaluating those programs, right? So we're really in a space of constant evaluation right now. Are we providing what is enough? Is it right? Do we need to make shifts? Again, just being responsive and flexible and adaptable from a revenue streamline efficiency perspective, I think is different for us operationally than maybe what we used to in the past. We really want to make sure our resources are there to serve the whole community and being responsive to the community and what those needs are. And also our teams. How are we supporting our teams the best we can too? So again, I think we have some different I guess, revenue streams that relates to some bigger things like, we've launched a new virtual Y, things like that. But we've, again, collaborations. We've collaborated with some virtual entities to be able to offer services and programming to some of our members that, we can't launch or, don't have the resources to launch, but we know is important to the satisfaction and retention of our members and bringing new members in or reaching a whole new demographic, right? Or expanding our reach in general. So, so that's kind of, some of the things that we've really tried to focus on to hopefully reach that, again, that revenue goal piece of, we want to be towards that 85%, but what the makeup of that looks like, that's our strategy around that for the year.
So it sounds like a lot of continuous improvement. Don't do what you did before. You did it just because you did it that way before.
Right.
And then use this opportunity to streamline operations, which that sounds like a pretty good plan. Parrish, where are you headed? Are you in that 85% ballpark or something different? And what are a couple of things that you are focused on as an organization to close that revenue gap?
Yeah, I would say we're a little less than 85%. Like everyone else, every organization and company, 2020 just basically decimated our business plan. We ended the year 40% less of revenue than we anticipated. And we did everything we could to walk away with a very, very, very slim margin. I mean, we were happy to end the year in the black, but it was a mix to get there between expense management and really the support of Atlanta-based philanthropy, if you will. And so knowing that and not knowing what was ahead, we've planned accordingly. And, we're about a third of the size that we were in 2020 in 2021. And the good news is, we're hitting all of our markers, but we scrutinize everything because it's required. And, I believe through collaboration, which has really been a big win for us because everyone is now playing nice and being friendly and reaching across the aisle to impact the community in a positive way. And we've developed some great partnerships, but we're really beginning to focus with a greater degree of intentionality on technology and how that influences the YMCA, how it influences membership, and how it really defines or will define the future of membership. And that was part of our plan going into 2020. But, the pandemic just had a really, really interesting way of expediting some of those discussions. And so we don't have an answer yet, but we know that membership as it once was will be defined differently because all of a sudden there's a whole new world of this virtual realm, and if you will. And how do we continue to impact people that we won't see coming through the doors? I do know that it creates a broader reach for us. And will allow us to define and maybe carve out a different tier of membership that we will be able to have just as deep of an impact with those who choose not to come through our doors as much as those who do come through the doors. But I don't think anyone really knows the answer to that, but I think we're all asking the same question and are really trying to figure that out, if you will. And I've seen a higher degree and deepening of collaboration between YMCAs. We're one movement. We talk all the time, but there's a much higher degree of collaboration around the solvency and the nature of impact that YMCAs will continue to have on the community. I mean, there are a lot of work groups that are working around this whole virtual concept and this new membership concept, communication, communicating for impact and around equity. And I think these are all the small silver linings that make up the whole of the solution of what will be the future of the YMCA. And so for right now, we seem to be doing okay, but we scrutinize almost by the day as opposed to by the quarter or by the month. And I think we've developed a muscle around that. And we also regionalized a lot of our programmatic offerings and even membership. And it's worked well for us. I will say that it continues to be a struggle, particularly as we begin to move back into a higher occupied YMCA facility or a branch, we have to figure out, can we keep our energy and our energy stores full so that YMCA's staff can create that member experience that people are known for or that expect us to do better of. And so I think we have a lot of conversation to continue to drive. But I think in the long run, if we continue to be patient, continue to ask for grace and give grace, I think we'll get there. You know, the YMCA has never been a traditional organization. We think we are, but you don't stick around for 178 years, 79 years doing the same thing in principle, if you will. And so I'm hoping that this will just be the next era or the next revolution of how we continue to show up for an evolving society.
Yep. Yeah, no, great points. And Christina, you dipped your toe into virtual. We've got a couple of questions from our audience on virtual. So I'm going to try to wrap them into, to one question. What are you doing to serve members virtually? So maybe expound a little bit on what you talked about. And, what's your gut on how, is this going to be something that's going to be with us all the time? Will it wane a little bit? Do you think it'll be a bigger deal? How are y'all thinking about virtual programming, which typically takes place in more of an exercise setting, but can be educational as well? So if you could expound a little bit about what you're doing and where you think it's going.
I have so many thoughts on this. So my title at the J is Member Experience Director, and it's literally membership, like the Member Experience Fitness Center, all of that, plus IT. That's what I oversee.
I have the same job at Daxco.
Want to trade? I'm just kidding.
Well, there are days that I do actually,
right.
But yeah, we actually talk all the time about what we can do to use technology to improve the member experience. I mean, honestly, that is our lifeblood.
And it's really interesting because even prior to the pandemic, since I'm, my husband owns a tech company, like I am a tech brain person. But I also keep saying and kind of sounding this alarm about everybody going so virtual, like the reliance on that. There's this JCC, I believe in Canada, that created the virtual JCC. And they have the most well-produced, amazing content I've seen. But that doesn't align necessarily with what our JCC's role in our community is. And kind of like when I was saying about the group fitness classes, we had it on Facebook, which is very one way. It's the instructor talking to people don't see each other. Suddenly we put it on Zoom and they see each other and it's a whole new world for them. And that we need to constantly check back with whatever that mission of the organization is. If my mission for my organization is to serve my community in the way that they need to be served and they want to be, and what they're looking from me isn't to be Orange Theory. Never going to be Orange Theory. I'm never going to be insert other fitness clubs. But what I can provide you is, that Cheers mentality from the 1980s where everybody knows your name and you show up and people are so excited. And so I'm really excited to slowly kind of wean off the virtual. We're still doing it. So we literally have people log in through the portal and they go to like a shared Dropbox folder, basically. We like to shoestring our budgets around here sometimes. I know how to do it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And, we still like it and it's still a great asset for the community, especially if you miss a class and you still want to work out. I don't think it will ever go away entirely, but I don't want that to be what I hang my hat on because that's not what our community wants from us.
Right. Yes. And you keep using the term community, which I think it's hard to have a community in a two-dimensional world. Yeah. Very, very interesting points. Lolita, how is virtual playing out in Columbus, Ohio, and what are you doing now? And just to check back, Christina, I believe your approach is that's part of the membership, like your members, have access to this, so no extra fees or anything. So it's just,
there were a lot of conversations about having 2-tier memberships, and we just felt like it's going to pull we have so many members who don't come in anyways. They use the membership as a way to support the J, that if we offer a lower tier membership, they will all shift to that and still support the J. That was kind of the thinking.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Lolita, what are we doing about virtual and where do you think it's headed and how are you doing it from a monetization perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, it as you know, Paris said it, we quickly realized that we had to be expedited, you know, we needed to pivot to meet these community needs like through all of our business slides virtually. And it really like launched us to shift quickly, as everyone across the board, you know, had to. And, you know, from branch operations, yes, we responded with when our branches were closed with the virtual workouts of the day, and it was very fitness based, right? Very wellness based. You know, all of those things were one way, kind of very similar. We tried to launch some, you know, interactive like Zoom classes, things like that. So again, just, you know, evolving and figuring out the space a little bit and what that looks like. But we did feel that there is a place. I mean, I think there's a balance for us. The way we think of the virtual Y is it helps us increase reach and access, and that is part of our mission. It's not going to 100% take away our facilities and buildings, but it is a great enhancement. So you know, originally, you know, again, collaborations is just the best way to put it for us from the beginning. You know, we partnered with Get Set Up to provide adults that's 50 and up with virtual classes, live classes, because we knew it would help keep them active, learning, connected to others, because we knew seniors were the most affected with the isolation through the pandemic. So that was really important for us to you know, bring in an entity that could help serve that purpose for us. And that has gone really, really well. You know, in the beginning, our virtual offerings were free and on our website for the whole community to enjoy. Like, didn't matter if you were a member, anyone, it was the whole community could, you know, we just wanted to keep our communities healthy during all of that. And now where it's pivoted to is, again, that balance. It does help us increase, again, that reach and access. So this has evolved into what we are calling our virtual YMCA, and our mindset of our virtual YMCA is that experience. We were very intentional about what is the experience. You know, it's not just fitness classes. It's not just things that can get on demand now, those types of things. We want the member or the person who's in this virtual Y to get the same feeling when they walk into one of our Ys, that there's a staff person who greets them, that they're, you know, they still get, you know, a card, and they see everything that the Y has. There's still child, you know, care spaces, and they get to see like aquatics and let's say our group exercise room. Like, it's a very visual experience when they walk in. So just like they would if they walked into one of our facilities. Again, it's the engagement piece. We're going to have the same style engagement and onboarding and connections that we would do for a member walking into one of our facilities. And the other thing is, I think we have this hybrid as well that we're evolving into. So for example, as when you talk about the dollar piece and what does that look like? Is it part of our membership? It's kind of split right now. If you're a member, like a facility member, bricks and mortar facility member, then you would get all those wellness components and things of the virtual Y just included in your membership as a value add. And then there's things where, you know, there's a hybrid. So if they want to do a class at home and they need equipment, there's packages. They can get equipment, take it back to their home for their Y, whatever's going to suit their be convenient for their schedule. So there are, you know, benefits and opportunities, what that looks like for our members, again, full facility members. Or this is where I think the reach is a little different for us, in a space, again, that we still have to figure out and evolve into. We're just stepping into it, right? Is places where we don't have YMCAs. Now we have a opportunity and access to be able to reach those individuals. And what does that look like? How do we engage them into our mission and purpose? And there's still going to be those members, even with the masks and everything else, you know, whether it's off, on, and some people, how they're feeling are very different across that journey. So some people still aren't going to be comfortable coming back. So this is a great, again, targeting those members who still have canceled or on hold, aren't comfortable coming back. This still gives them the opportunity to connect with our staff and do different things from a family perspective. Again, the family was something that was shifted for us with our offerings in the beginning. So we're offering very different things in our virtual virtual, while we're offering family programming, we're offering, like story time, cooking, family cooking classes, just all kinds of things through our staff at our branches where those amenities are available. We just have different resources now that we can even reach more people. So, for instance, in a regular membership, we might have a facility that has a nutritionist, but it's very localized, right? We can't spread that across. Well, now we can have a nutritionist, let's say at one of our branches, and they can now connect one-on-one virtually with all of our members across our association. So, so we do feel there's a space there, some kind of hybrid, but again, still learning. It's a new space for us and still evolving.
Yeah, I think that's the case for everybody, for sure, and hard to predict where it'll go. Parrish, any thoughts on virtual in Atlanta and where it's headed? And what have you guys done?
Well, it's certainly here. I can tell you, we believe that it will provide a gateway for people who are not familiar with us to enter. It's almost a first point of contact for us. I mean, we're doing everything that Christina and Lolita have shared, particularly with offering virtual classes that we've recorded just to keep people engaged while they were sheltering at home. Interestingly enough, we're at the midway point of our current marketing campaign, and I was just reviewing some metrics, and it's mostly a digital campaign. I mean, that's a lot of paid search, online ads, all the social platforms, and there's a spattering of digital out of home creatives that you'll see if you drive along within the Atlanta community, regional community. The demographic that is engaged with our campaign the most, believe it or not, are older adults. And exactly, Ron. And they edged out the millennial demographic by a margin. And it's not that the millennial demographic has not participated, it's that we saw more older adults participate, and we certainly did not anticipate that. And I guess it's because of the preconceived notions that we have around keeping pace with technology for older Americans, if you will. But what it just really showed us is that this pandemic has had such a significant impact on everyone that is changing everyone's behaviors. And so as we were all sheltering in place and trying desperately to get wide content and information to our members and our membership basis through all demographics and all paradigms, we're seeing more older adults use technology as a way of engagement. And so that's something that has an implication for us that we have to figure out. And so I do believe that a virtual offering on some level, while I can't define it for you today, but I do know it's a must grab in a sense, and we're gonna have to define what it is. We were feeding everything to our members as a complement to their membership throughout the pandemic, like everything else, like everyone else, and we continue to do so, even to the degree where we're communicating with them daily through what we call a Healthy at Home newsletter, or Healthy Together. We sort of evolved it from Healthy at Home to Healthy Together, where they get daily content and a spattering of virtual workouts. But it becomes an add-on and perhaps a point of entry for those who are not engaged with us currently.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And everybody's trying to figure it out. I can tell you, broadly across health and wellness, we're all trying to kind of figure out virtual, how it applies to our communities, how it supports the mission that we are in our community driving towards. So it's really, really interesting to watch and frankly try to use our technology to enable it and make it a little easier, and set up the paywalls and do all those kind of things. Our hostess, Brittany, I think you messaged me that you had a question, and that'd be a wonderful way to wrap things up. So I'll turn it back over to Community Rec.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all. And I know we're kind of like right on time, so I'm going to make this kind of quick. Something I'm seeing not only that's unique to our industry, but just like nationwide, is the topic of burnout. And especially more recently, with all these changes, you guys are constantly just like change, change, change. Can you all just give everyone a couple tips on how you all just take care of yourselves and, you know, just some positive feedback that you can provide to other people and just trying to keep up with the times? Christina, I want to start with you.
Sure. So I'm going to put on my parenting hat for a minute because my 3 kids are kind of everything with me. And the same rules that I apply to them, I apply to my job and to everything else. And it's consistency and it's processes. If you can have a consistent process that you can default to, that still ensures quality, it ensures whatever you need to have done, whether it's personally, you know, I know when I'm going to shower, I know when I'm a little type A. But having those consistent processes just makes that mental bandwidth that you're constantly having to think through. Do I have my mask? Do I have this? Did I wash my hands? If you have things to default to help you make other decisions, it makes everything a lot easier.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Lolita?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just been flexibility and, you know, just applying more grace, to be honest. It's just everybody is in such a different place with so many different pieces of their life. And I think just taking a moment to recognize that, whether it's yourself, their staff, the members coming in, it's just trying to seek to understand where they are, and just providing a little bit more patience and grace when it comes to you know, just our interactions, and just the flexibility to know that, hey, it might not work out, we might get new news, and we're just gonna continue to go on together. So
Yeah, grace is the theme of everything right now. And Parrish, we'll wrap up with you.
Sure. You know, I think I really want to tout our CEO here in Atlanta, Lauren Kuntz. I think she's done an amazing job of not only communicating on a very frequent basis, but also sharing some of her own vulnerabilities as it relates to the wear and tear of the dynamic that we're in, particularly when you think about pace. And as a result of that, we've considered and added a focus of mental health to our strategic plan, our 5-year strategic plan, which we just launched this year. And the focus is centered on well-being and social emotional health of not only our participants, but of our staff. And there's a lot of conversation around that, around prioritizing how you remain energized so that you can honor the commitment that you have to communities, but also to yourself and to your families. And hearing that being led by our leader is so significant, because what it does is it just draws everyone to the cause in a much deeper manner. And I think because of her willingness to share her own personal vulnerability about making sure that we show up on purpose, on time, and ready to dig in, she's also certain to make sure that everyone does what they need to do, or at least hears from her that we need to keep ourselves as a priority, and so that we're available to everyone else, particularly to those that we see at home.
Yeah, and Ron, don't want to leave you out. I know you're a leader, so yeah, what is your tips?
I try every day, Brittany, I can tell you. One of the things we did was we had the former superintendent of West Point come and address my leadership team and taught a course. It was about a 90-minute course on, you know, avoiding burnout, because our military women and men, you know, they're obviously in very stressful situations, and the U.S. military has invested a lot of time, money, and effort trying to understand that. And so he gave us this little thing that he calls 8-6-2-8. And it's the formula in normal times that you want to get, you know, 8 hours of rest, 6 hours of kind of personal time, 2 hours to work out, and then 8 hours of, you know, work. Obviously, sometimes we have to work a little later or work a weekend or whatever, but 8-6-2-8 was kind of this rallying cry to make sure you're in balance. Because typically when you hit that burnout phase is when you're, you know, working, you know, 12 hours a day, you're not with your family, you don't see your 3 kids, you've skipping workouts and then, you kind of crash. And so we had that person come in and talk to our leadership team, and a lot of people got a lot out of it. And I do know that David offers that as a service. So if anybody's interested in having him come talk to your team, let me know. He's a very interesting guy, 30 or 35 or 40-year Army career, including running West Point. So we thought he was, more than capable to teach us a thing or two.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that wraps us up. So thank you to everyone who attended. Thank you, panelists, DAXCO, Ron, Kelsey, Christy. Community Direct was really honored to partner with you all on this and experience it. So I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.